everyone, so my name is Morgan and welcome to Happy Makes You. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my current projects. So I think at the moment I have only knit projects. I have just not been super inspired by crochet lately. I can't find any patterns I really like and I just haven't been doing it lately, so that's why you're going to see a lot of my projects, well all of my projects are knit, and that's why I don't have anything crocheted right now. But I'm hoping to start a crocheted blanket really soon to kind of help use up my yarn, which I'll be talking about later in the video. So let's get started. Let me show you guys what I'm working on. Okay, so the first thing which I am most excited about is I am working on this beautiful knit wrap shawl, if you want to call it, and it is just so beautiful. I am in love with this. It's so much fun to make. I love the color, and the color is actually, let me show you the yarn that I'm using. So I am using this DK weight yarn by Silly Goose yarn. So I got this whenever I was at DFW Fiber Fest, which I never uploaded my haul from that, so I might upload it as my next video, even though it's about a month late. Better late than never is how I'm kind of thinking about it. But I just thought it'd be kind of fun to be able to share with you guys of what I got, and especially since I'm using some of it now. So this is the Plump DK, and it's in the shade Spruce. And this is just a gorgeous shade. I just love it so much, and it is working up beautifully. And this pattern is called the Perfectionist Trap. And it is just a gorgeous shawl wrap, and I'm so excited to be making it. And so I'll have all the patterns and the yarns linked down below for you guys, so you guys can go check them out for yourself. But I'm just enjoying this pattern because it's very simple, and I have messed up on it a few times, not gonna lie, because, well, I wasn't paying attention and I was watching a show. But what I like about it is it has the garter stitch, so that's just knitting, and then you slip some of the stitches, which will create the lines, and it's just so crisp and just looks so nice and neat. I just really love how also the color is working up with kind of the different shade tones of the green. It's just beautiful, and I'm hoping to finish this up before Christmas because I think this will be the perfect shawl wrap to wear around Christmas. So I'm really excited about it, and I've just been loving working on it. The yarn is super squishy, so it's just a joy to work with. So I'm really excited about it. I've not had any problems with the pattern. The only problem I could see maybe happening, I'm going to have to measure it out, is I just need to make sure my gauge is on point, because I know my mom's making the same one and she's kind of struggling with the gauge. Hers is turning out smaller, and I usually am a very loose knitter, and so I went down a size, and I'm using actually some Susan Bates knitting needles. So I believe these are 7s. Yes, they are 7s, and the pattern calls for size 8. So I'm hoping it's going to still turn out the same size, but since I'm making mine out of one color, I can always just make it a little bit longer. I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. But I am, like I said, I really am loving how this is turning out. It's just been such a joy to work on. I've noticed I pick it up a lot. I've been knitting a lot more because I love what I'm working on. So I'm really excited about this one. And another thing I am working on, and I've talked about this in the past, is my knitted blanket, and I'm still working on it. I'm still chugging away at it, and I'm on this block, which is a cream block, and this is the front side of it. And so I'm just using Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn because I want a durable acrylic yarn that I could find a lot of colors of that I could see in person. And this is just a really pretty lacy block, and this is actually the last block of this pattern, so whenever I'm done with this one I won't have to make any more. And I think I'm about halfway on the blanket now, and I've been sewing as I go. I really need to weave in my ends as I go, but I'm just not there yet. I'm just proud of myself. I'm actually sewing them together. I mean, right there, I'm making progress by just doing that, because typically I don't do that. But I am really excited about it. I just don't really pick it up as often because I'm more excited about other projects that I'm working on. And I am also decided that I want to make my own pair of socks. So this one is going to be kind of an interesting works in progress because I'm actually going to be ripping it out, and I just noticed that a bunch of stitches fell off, so it works out. This is the sock that I was making, and it's a toe up sock, but it was turning out too big, so I was just going to rip it out and restart. And I actually already have the other yarn that I'm going to be working with. This is going to be my little sock bag. I actually got it from Ulta, and I just thought it was really, really pretty. It's kind of like this halo type, hollow type effect, and this is the yarn I'm going to be using. Now, this is just a yarn I got from a yarn store years ago, and it's just a nylon sock yarn, so I can't tell you who makes it or what colorway it is, but it goes from a dark purple to a lighter purple to a white to a magenta color, and it is really pretty. I do like how it's turning out, but like I said, I'm gonna have to rip out the sock and restart because it's just too big, and I don't really want to waste my time working on a sock that I already know is too big when I could just rip it out and restart and actually have a pair of socks that's going to fit me. But I thought this would be kind of the perfect bag for it because it's kind of tiny, but not too tiny, and I'll be able to fit. I already have a pair of scissors, the yarn I'm going to be working with, and then I'll stick my pattern in here and also my needles, and I think it'll be actually the perfect size. And then it frees up an actual full-size project bag for me. So the last thing I'm working on at the moment, I have to pull up the name because I don't remember the name of it. Okay, so the name of the pattern I'm using, I am making a sweater, and I got it off of the Purl Soho website, and it's free, and it's called the Lightweight Raglan Pullover. So this raglan is made a little bit different because it's not made from the top down, it's actually made from the bottom up. And I've never actually made a raglan sweater before, so right there it's already new to me, and I'm making it kind of opposite than when it's typically made. So you make the sleeves first, which is weird, but I guess it's kind of nice because whenever you're done with it and you don't have to go back and make the sleeves. You make the sleeves, you make the body, and then you attach them all together, and then you make the yoke and then the neckline and everything. So I feel like once I connect everything and I work on the yoke, which is the last portion, it'll go by pretty fast because that's whenever you're creating the raglan and you're also decreasing a lot in that. So I finished one sleeve, and this is what it looks like, and then I started my second sleeve. So it's really bright and colorful, and the yarn I'm using is actually by Hobby Lobby. It's their hand-dyed yarn, and this one is called Supernova, and I actually got this last year in 2021. I got it on their clearance. I know earlier this year I got a bunch of more of the hand dyed. I have not used any of it yet, but I did decide to pull this one out and try it because I had enough and then some, because it called for 3 skeins, but I was literally going to have the exact amount of yardage I needed, and that just made me really uncomfortable because what if I ran out? I would literally have no way to finish it. So at least this one I have an extra skein, so if I do go past the 3 skeins, I have a 4th skein that I could break into. I just did not like cutting it that close. I really did not want to play yarn chicken with a knitted sweater that you're not going to know until you're working on the yoke. At least if you're working on the sleeves, you can maybe shorten the sleeves. But so this yarn, I have not heard a lot of people talk about this yarn, and I noticed whenever I did my haul, some people were commenting they wanted to see what I made out of it because I even looked online and no one talks about this yarn. There are no swatches online. It's kind of like people buy it and it disappears and you never hear about it again. I don't know if it just goes in people's stashes and they don't use it. I don't know. But I do see a slight problem with this yarn. So I am using 2 skeins, and I'm switching between the 2 skeins to prevent color pooling, but I'm still getting color pooling a little bit with it. So obviously when you have color pooling, you have to have a certain amount of stitches for you to start noticing the color pooling happening, because it's going to always show up in the same place whenever, especially if you're working in rounds, it's really going to show up. I feel like even more so than working back and forth in rows. But even then, I guess it would show up back and forth in rows if you have a consistent amount. So whenever I first started the sleeve and I did not have as many stitches, it really did do a nice job of striping itself. As you can see, there's no rhyme or reason to the stripes. There were a couple areas where it's just all cream and it's kind of like a patch here and a patch there because it was kind of striping every other row in the same area. But towards the top, I kind of noticed that there was bigger sections of the cream showing up and bigger sections of the color showing up. So as you can see here, there is a giant section of color and then there's a giant section of cream. Right here, there's a giant section of cream and then a giant section of color. So, and even more so on the other side, there is a giant section of color and then there's a lot of cream around it. It's not really striping anymore. So since I noticed that after I was done with my first sleeve, I'm not going to change the second and I'm not going to change the body at all. I'm still going to just do what I've been doing the entire time, which is just switching every sixth row. Every 6 rows I switch to the next skein. And why it is doing this is because this is 6 rows right here. This is 6 rows right here. I think this is a little bit more than 6 rows. Mine just happened to color pool like the exact same way, which was, I don't know, a little, I feel like there should have not been that high of a chance of that happening, but it did. And I'm kind of learning with this. I've never really used hand-dyed yarn in bigger projects. Typically whenever I've used hand-dyed in the past, it's a very small project where I didn't have to worry about changing skeins. So this is kind of my first big project using hand-dyed yarn, and I know I read online in multiple places that with hand-dyed yarn, you need to switch between 2 skeins because color pooling is more likely to happen because just the way most yarns are dyed, which is totally fine. I'm not upset or anything, but I am learning through this project that I might need to know on my next project of using this Hobby Lobby yarn. That maybe I need to make it sure that the project that I'm using in maybe increases and decreases a lot of stitches so it kind of changes the movement of the color. Because once you get to a consistent amount of stitches, you're going to start noticing where I can really tell like where I stopped increasing on this because I started getting those bigger patches. So hopefully that made sense. I'm not upset. I'm not mad at it. I think it's still going to turn out to be a really cute sweater. I'm working on the second sleeve right now. It's actually going by a lot faster than the first sleeve. The first sleeve felt like it took forever, but the next sleeve is actually working up really quickly. So I'm hoping that it's going to go smoothly and hopefully it will kind of match. They're going to kind of match each other, and hopefully there is a little bit of color pooling towards the top of the sleeve so they kind of match. And I imagine the body's going to color pool pretty bad, so I'm just kind of already thinking about it and I'm like, that's okay. It's just going to have the character to it, so that's totally fine. But so that is my current projects at the moment. So that's all I've been working on. Like I said, I'm gonna have to rip out my sock and restart it, but everything else I've been just working on and I've been really enjoying it, and I felt very passionate and just very excited, so that's why I'm kind of happy to be able to share them with you guys. So the second part of this video, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my yarn stash. So I watched recently a video by Knitty Natty, and her name is Natalie, and I'm sure you guys have seen her videos. I will have the video that I watched linked down below for you guys. So she has been slowly getting her stash down to basically where she has no stash at all. I've not really talked about this because I've not made a lot of videos recently, but I've actually gotten rid of quite a bit of yarn the past couple months because I know I've talked to you guys a lot about me trying to work through my stash and everything, but I just noticed that I was starting to get very unhappy with my yarn and I was just not enjoying it anymore. It's actually becoming more of a hindrance than a tool to use for my creativity. It was actually causing me not to want to work on stuff because I didn't have the yarn for it, or I just didn't love the yarn I had in my stash. So I have gone through my yarn twice since I talked about that. One of the times I got rid of a ton of yarn, and then the second time I got rid of quite a bit, but not as much as the first time. And so watching her video, she actually counted how many skeins she had, and I decided, even though I was a little bit nervous, I wanted to do the same thing. So I set out a couple days ago to count all of my skeins. So I counted all full skeins, but I did not count partials or scraps. So what I mean by partials and scraps are going to be like leftover from past projects, and then partials are usually I have used them on a project, but if I had more than one partial and they probably had about the quantity to make up one skein, I did count those in my final count. But if not, and they were just kind of small, I kind of stuck them away with my scrap yarn, just because I know I'm probably going to use it more for like a scrappy type project rather than actually pull them in and use them for a large project, if that makes sense. So my grand total is, I do have my yarn split up. So let me explain that first. So I do have my yarn split up. I have right now my fall and just my yarn I love out right now, and I put away my summer and spring yarn, which tends to be brighter colors and lighter weight yarn. I still have all of my hand-dyed yarn that I got from Hobby Lobby out, because I don't really consider, I kind of consider that yarn I love, so I just kind of kept that yarn up. But the yarn that I have with brighter colors, a lot of my cotton yarn, all of that is in a tote. So I actually pulled that tote out too and decided to put that in the final count, so I know as a grand total how much yarn do I have. So my grand total is I have 195 skeins, which is a lot more than I thought I had, but also less than I thought I had. So I thought, I told my dad about it. My dad's like, I said, well, at least I have less than 200. And he's like, yeah, but whenever you buy something that's $1.95, what do you normally say how much it is? And I'm like, usually you say it's $2. So basically it's 200, because it's only 5 shorter than 200, but in my mind it makes me feel better saying that it's less than 200, because it truly is less than 200 if we're not counting any scrap yarn or anything like that. So with saying that, I am so tired of having this much yarn. I really would love to have a manageable amount of yarn, because I do think having this much yarn is causing a little bit of a hindrance. And I know that sounds, I'm not trying to come off as bratty or, oh, I just have too much yarn, this is such a problem, because I know a lot of people, there are people out there who do not have a lot of yarn, and there's people who have a ton of yarn out there. I think there's kind of, everybody has this like scale of how much yarn they have, and I really don't think it truly matters. It only matters to the person who has it, because like a lot of people, they can have a ton of yarn and they're totally fine with it. They love having a lot of yarn, where other people out there may not even have a stash and they love that they're just able to buy for each project that they want to work on, which is kind of where I want to get to. Whenever I went to Fiberfest, I bought with intention of using each yarn for pretty much a project. There was only 2 skeins that I bought that I did not know what I wanted to buy, what I wanted to make with them. I have an idea of what I want to make with them, but I'm not like set in stone of like, this is the pattern I'm going to use with it. But everything else I bought, I had an intention of like, this is what I'm going to make out of this yarn, which doesn't mean I'm working on all those projects right now. They are sitting in one of my bins on my shelf. But I know in my mind, okay, with this yarn, I'm going to make this sweater. With this yarn, I'm going to make this hat. With this yarn, I'm going to make that scarf. So that does help, I think, in my mind, because at least then I know, like, this is what I'm going to be using that yarn for. Which is what I want my stash to kind of become. I don't think it's, for me, I would like to have only a couple skeins that I don't really know what I'm going to do with. The rest of the skeins I would really love to have a plan for, because I find that I'm really struggling with the yarn I have in my stash of even what to do with it. I know I bought these yarn with the intention of like, oh, I want to have enough to be able to make a sweater out of this yarn. But even then, I notice I'm not picking that yarn up. I'd rather go out and buy yarn for that sweater than use what's up in my stash. And I'm not as excited about the yarn in my stash anymore as I was when I first bought it. And I think that's something that Natalie said in her video, is a lot of times for her, the yarn she buys, she's really excited about it when she buys it. But once she uses, once a couple months down the road, she's not as excited about it anymore, and it just sits in her stash. Where I want to buy yarn where I'm really excited about it and I can use it right then and there, and I don't have to, or I already know what pattern I'm going to use the yarn for, so I can just be excited maybe about the pattern and I'm really excited to use it type thing. So that's kind of where I am with that. So I think over the course of a few months, I'm going to kind of take a step back from especially buying yarn and trying to use up yarn and trying to figure out a little bit more of like what I want to use my yarn for. I'm beginning to become not as big of a fan of acrylic yarn. Like I said, I did go to Fiber Fest and I was introduced to a whole new different realm of yarns and animal fibers, and even there was some plant fibers there like bamboo and things like that, and I fell in love with that type of yarn. I'm more excited to work with this nicer yarn, and so I just kind of feel like when I make a sweater, I'm not going to want to use acrylic. I'd rather use maybe a nicer yarn that I know is going to last a lot longer and it's not going to pill up and it's still going to wash well and things like that. Yes, acrylic does last because it is made out of plastic, but it does pill, it does wear over time, it doesn't wash super well. Or maybe if you make a super wash wool sweater, maybe you don't wash it all of the time, but whenever you do, it still holds up really well. And I think especially since I want to make sweaters that last a long time, because I'm going to be putting so much work into them, I want to make sure I use really good quality to be able to accomplish that goal. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I kind of took Natalie's advice on how she's dealing with her yarn, and basically she has a piece of paper, a notebook, where she writes down what yarn comes into her stash and what yarn goes out of her stash. So right now my starting total is 195 skeins. I'm starting it now. Yes, I have pulled yarn out, but they're not even part of this total. So if I take any more yarn out for a project, she takes it out of her stash count whenever she pulls it for a project. So that's what I'm going to do. So if I pull some yarn out for maybe a crochet blanket or something like that, I will take it out of my yarn count and I'll be able to say like, oh, I'm actually working on this. So I think that is going to help, and maybe it'll also help me find a pattern if there's maybe some times in the year that I buy more yarn than other times, or maybe sometimes I'll be able to notice where I maybe make more things than other times in the year. So I just want to share with you guys that kind of thing I'm going through, a process I guess you could say, with my yarn stash, because I really do want to get it down a lot lower than what it is. I mean, it still is a lot, but I would love to get to like 50 skeins. To me, that seems so much more manageable than almost 200 skeins. 50 is still a lot, don't get me wrong, but I think that would be a little bit more manageable for me to actually know what I have, because that's also another problem I'm running into. I have no idea what I have in my collection, so I'm just going to go out and buy the yarn because I don't even know I have that yarn, which is becoming a problem. But yeah, so I just thought I would kind of get on here and kind of do, I guess, a podcast style, because I just want to sit down and talk with you guys. So I'm hoping to maybe start doing this once a week and just updating you guys on what I'm working on at the moment, so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. And then, like I said, I am going to upload my DFW Fiber Fest haul. I'm sorry I did not get it out sooner. I've just been super busy and I've just been kind of swamped with that, but I wanted to share with you guys still so you guys can see what I got there, and it was so much fun. I had an amazing time. But anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments below what you guys are working on. I would love to know, and also let me know what your thoughts are on a yarn stash. Do you think it's a good idea to have a big one or a small one, or do you just say it depends on the person, kind of like how I am? I really do think it depends on the person, and right now I used to love to have a large stash, but I'm thinking I'm beginning to become a little bit of, I want a more manageable stash than what I feel like right now is out of control for me. So definitely let me know down in the comments below. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!